Hello, dwellers of the internet. PlatSkull here once again, just to ramble on about Dark Souls 3 PvP for a little bit. I've been experiencing some of it for the past couple of days. It is the flip side of the kind of content that I'm usually into when it comes to the main attractiveness of a game. I'm far more of a story slash lore explorative kind of guy, which is why Dark Souls as a series is extremely appealing to me. But lately I've been getting into the PvP side of things, and that's partially because of one of the highlights that I'd like to start off talking about right now is that the PvP mechanically ties into the story and the lore of the game. It's not just a mechanic thrown into the game for the sake of having a mechanic for the sake of PvP. It has an explanation behind it, lore-wise, and that is that if you're familiar with the story of Dark Souls, it runs extremely deep, but essentially what it comes down to is that each main protagonist of a game is in their own timeline. You are that protagonist who is either going to link the fire or let the fire fade, or whatever the ending, whatever other ending possibilities that the game provides for you, in your own world and in your timeline. But there also exists an infinite number of other worlds where everybody else who's playing online is having their own adventure and choosing their own path, which is the explanation behind why PvP is possible in the first place, as well as cooperative play. Because this is what allows for phantoms to be summoned if you wanted to work cooperatively with someone to take down enemies around an area or to beat a boss more likely. And it's really awesome. Summoning phantoms for online multiplayer just basically comes down to there are ways you can connect yourself with these other worlds and timelines, which mechanically is to ember yourself and place your summon sign soapstone down somewhere to where somebody could summon you. And likewise, if you're also embered in your own world, you can see each one of these summon signs placed down by any other individual in another world, which you can take advantage of and summon to your world. So it works both ways. If you have a connection or link to all the other worlds, you then can summon each other into your own worlds for help, which is fucking awesome. And it's not even just this main detail that allows for invasions or summons to take place, where you could be either hostile or friendly to this other player in this other world. It's not even just the fact that that is possible mechanic-wise based on the lore. It's the fact that it also depends on the covenant allegiance that you're with at the time, who you've pledged yourself to. For instance, if you're with the Rosaria's Fingers covenant, which is facilitative of basically your, most basic kind of invasion to another player in another world, which is you are someone who is an asshole. You're going to these other worlds, finding different dimensions and timelines to invade for the sake of killing, either for Rosaria, to earn her favor, to kill for her, and to pillage and reap souls and pale tongues and other miscellaneous items, as well as embers to further your connection to these other worlds. You're basically trying to gain power from this, and this is explanatory of the entire operation of the hostility of Rosaria's Fingers aligned Covenant players, or not aligned to any Covenant, because your basic invasion to other worlds without being aligned to any Covenant is exactly the same, except I don't think you gain Pale Tongues. Well, no, maybe you do. Either way, those two, either having the Rosaria's Fingers Covenant or not, are basically the same category of invasion, except the Rosaria's Fingers Covenant is a little bit more extensive or involved and explanatory of the reasons behind why you're doing it, rather than just you're a mad phantom and you're going to another world to kill for who the fuck knows. And this is cool because it provides a reasoning for you being a hostile invader. It ties into the story because you're working for this covenant. And if you know of the reasons, I'm not going to go into it right now because that's a hell of a lot of information to dive into at the moment, but the reasoning behind it is your allegiance to this covenant, and it is explained. Just the fact that they give an in-game explanation for it and put in the effort to make that connection and not just say, oh, well, we have a game and it'd be really awesome if you could do PvP, so let's just throw it in there. No, that's not how it is with Dark Souls, and it's not, it wouldn't be perfect if they attempted to do it that way, because Dark Souls is known for its story, and it's known for these drastic, huge, overextensive lore connections that they don't necessarily have to make, but they do because that is the quality of the game, and that is how it's able to present itself as, something superior, and a game that is well-deserving of placement in everybody's top fives and whatnot, which is great, and it's something I find extremely attractive about the game. And it's not even just limited to invasions or phantom summons. Depending on your Covenant allegiance, it can alter your PvP experience or cooperative experience, and allows for all these different cases of variability in encounters and experiences that you might have based on your Covenant. For instance, if you happen to be aligned with the Aldrich Faithful Covenant or the Watchdogs of Farron, these covenants are centered around a certain area, or a couple those around specific areas in the game. For instance, the Aldrich Faithful is assigned to Irithyll of the Boreal Valley, and Watchdogs of Farron are Watchdogs of Farron, Farron Keep, that entire landscape, respectively. And the reason why this adds for a little bit more variability in combat and encounters is that because they're assigned to guard these specific areas, it's not an initiative of the player that causes an invasion to occur, or a summoning of someone to allow for you to enter into another world if you're aligned with this covenant. Invasions take place automatically, and summons take place automatically. If there's anyone in this area who happens to be at that section of the game, then you are likely to get summoned to take them out and eliminate them from that part of the world, because these covenants are both tasked with keeping these areas clear of trespassers, and any player character in the area at the time is considered a trespasser to these covenants, which is why they are tasked with that operation and why they get summoned automatically. And that is just awesome to have instances of random invasions occur, or random battles that just as well tie into the lore as any old random invasion, is the fact that they are supposedly working from other worlds and other timelines for these other covenants that can and will invade your world and your timeline, because the covenant allegiance requirements still must be fulfilled, and it translates across timelines. It's that kind of power and that kind of mechanism that can allow for these worlds to be transversed, which is just fucking beautiful. It's awesome to think about. And not only is it cool from a lore perspective, but mechanically and entertainment-wise, it provides for so much more, because then you have these encounters happening where, let's say, the Host of Embers, meaning the player who is of that world, it is their original world where they came from, their main world. Let's say the Host of Embers is traversing a place like Irithyll of the Boreal Valley, and they happen to summon a phantom. Them summoning a phantom increases the likelihood of invasions by not only Aldrich Faithfuls, but anybody who is part of the Rosaria's Fingers Covenant or is just invading to enter into their world. That's another thing that allows for more extensive gameplay, is the fact that if you summon one phantom into your world, the chances of multiple phantoms, whether they be invaders or just or allied phantoms, increases dramatically, which ups the entertainment tenfold, because then not only is it just one PvP encounter, It allows for all these different scenarios to play out where, let's say these invasions do occur and you also have a phantom. It incites other phantoms to be more invasive and come to your world, where it ends up that on your one server, in your one world, as the host of Embers, you will have a Phantom who is your ally, as well as an Invader and an Eldritch Faithful, all on the same server, all going at it. Now, the reason why this can be variable and can be even more interesting is because the Eldritch Faithful can not only attack the host of Embers and the Phantom, but he can also attack the other Invader from Rosaria's Fingers because they're technically not aligned in the same covenant. So you may have a certain situation where the host of Embers is allying with an Eldritch Faithful to take out his Invader before they have to face one another, or he may be allying with his Invader to take out the Eldritch Faithful because he sees him as more of a threat, because he's a more skilled player. The player skill level and vulnerability of certain players when it comes to team-ups would also play a factor in here, and it allows for so much more variability, so much more mechanics to be taken advantage of as far as who, where, and who the players are aligned with, and what ends up playing out in the world based on these different factors. Attitude also comes into question. Dark Souls just has an awesome PvP experience, and I just felt like rambling about that for a little bit because I have only recently unearthed its benefits. Anyways, see you guys on the next Ramble.